Oh my goodness, there's an end portal in this village. That's like insanely rare. I'm so lucky.
These are some of the funniest fake Minecraft speedruns I have ever seen. This first runner spawns in with a bonus chest, something that is definitely not allowed in a speedrun. The chest also contains 3 iron, something that can't spawn in a bonus chest, but is gonna be very handy. Also notice this wool on the ground here, clearly showing that this world has already been played on, as the runner must have killed a sheep without cleaning it up. The runner runs to a nearby village next, where he finds an iron golem in a very strange location, unable to move and so extremely easy for him to kill. In the village's blacksmith, he finds a flint and steel, which looks realistic but is not a possible spawn. Once the runner is done looting the village, he spots a ruined portal that is conveniently very close by. But get this, in the portal's chest there is an enchanted golden apple, a normal golden apple, gold, a gold sword, and a block of gold. Look, all of these items are possible spawns, but the probability of them all occurring is... I don't even know, very low. And when the runner closes the chest, the portal is essentially complete. Not at all what it looked like beforehand. The runner completes the portal, enters the nether, and immediately attempts an advanced technique where you use the pie chart in the F3 menu to locate the nearest bastion. But instead of quickly changing your render distance like you're supposed to for this trick, this guy literally just spams random keys and then eventually runs right to a bastion. I mean, clearly he knew where the bastion was, but it definitely wasn't from his advanced technique. Oh, also, on the way to the bastion, the runner crosses over this little bridge over lava here that was very blatantly made by him before the run. The runner finds netherite in 2 of the bastion's chests, and while netherite can spawn in bastions, it can't in these rooms, only in a treasure bastion. After grabbing gold around the bastion, the runner throws a ton at piglins, but I guess gets impatient and just leaves before getting any ender pearls. The runner finds a fortress next where, after killing some blazes, makes the strange decision to mine the spawner, which drops additional blaze rods. The runner returns to the overworld and finds the stronghold where the end portal already has 8 eyes in it, something that has a less than 0% chance of spawning. 1 in 307,000 to be specific. This next run is very interesting. Let me show you why. Firstly, the water from this farm here has spread a ton, something that would take more than 2 seconds into the run to happen. But also notice some of the movements the runner is making. They seem pretty non-human, shown once again when the runner opens a chest, and yeah. This suggests that the runner is using some sort of mod to enhance his movements, which in fact is confirmed by the small icon above his hotbar, a mark of the low TAS mod for tool-assisted Minecraft speedruns, something that is allowed but only in specific tool-assisted runs, something that this run is not. It's supposed to be completely vanilla. The runner has also included his world seed in the description, which when loaded up, shows that the flint and steel he found in the blacksmith chest doesn't actually spawn naturally, and must have been placed by him before the run. The runner takes advantage of this enhanced movement again when fighting an iron golem, where he's able to perfectly maneuver in order to avoid taking any damage. The runner builds a portal next and enters the nether, where he spawns right into a fortress, something that must have been edited, considering there is no fortress when entering the nether in this exact location on his seed. While fighting a ton of blazes, the tool-assisted movements are clearly shown once again, and the same for some more mobs later on. It's also worth noting that the runner takes no fall damage, likely thanks to his mod exploiting a Minecraft glitch that disables player velocity when first loading into a world. The runner heads back to the overworld next, but there's another obvious cut in his recording, shown by a slight change in his XP bar after changing dimensions. He heads to the stronghold, utilizing both Eyes of Ender and Ender Pearls, but once in the stronghold, the runner suddenly has an end crystal in his inventory. Totally random, but he's gonna need it in just a second. He enters the end and thanks to his mod, immediately places the crystal, something that if executed within 4 ticks of of loading into the dimension will prevent the dragon from spawning. And it works. There is no dragon, so the runner is able to enter the exit portal right away and complete his run. I wonder if this guy is actually any good at the game without a mod to help him. By the way, thank you guys for 600,000 subscribers. Maybe now we can get to 700,000? Please? Subscribe? This runner spawns in an absolutely terrible location that any normal speedrunner would just ditch and reset. But this isn't a normal speedrunner. Instead, he continues with the run by walking right to a ruined portal that has some crazy loot in its chest, including some diamonds, which fit right in, but according to the ruined portal loot tables, cannot actually spawn. The runner now has all the obsidian he would need to complete the portal, but he doesn't. Instead, he walks directly to a massive village that he clearly already knew the location of. This is further shown by the fact that these crops in the village have already grown in quite a bit, suggesting that these chunks have been loaded for more than the few seconds he's shown them in the run. In the village, he finds a number of iron golems, an amount that I guess is possible considering the village's size, but seems fairly unlikely. He also finds a chest with an impossible amount of bread. Why? I'm not sure. Next, the runner runs to his second ruined portal, which he uses to finally enter the nether. But this isn't the first time he's been in the dimension, shown by the lava that has already flowed all the way down to the ground. A clear contrast to what actually happens to this lava when the nether is first generated. This is confirmed further by the obsidian that we can spot in the corner of his screen. Clear remains of a past nether portal. The runner quickly finds a bastion that strangely has very few piglin in it, making it very easy for him to loot one of the loot rooms for an insane and impossible amount of gold. Wow. He then uses this gold, a stack and a half to be specific, to spam at the few piglin in the bastion and quickly obtain ender pearls and blaze rods, the second of which is not a possible trade. Next, the runner builds a portal in a very specific location, and while everything seems normal when he first travels through it, things get suspicious again when the runner lines himself up and walks in a perfectly straight line all the way until he reaches the stronghold. Once entering the end, thanks to coincidentally having the perfect number of eyes to do so, the runner only has to destroy a few of the end crystals due to the rest of them already being gone. This makes it very easy for him to quickly kill the dragon and finish his run. Let's move on. This runner exposes himself right off the bat, as his world loads super quickly, way quicker than it would take to generate a new world. He also spawns right inside of a village, very convenient, where he completely ignores this iron golem, despite having all the materials he would need to fight it. A strange decision, but one that makes more sense when in a house's chest he finds plenty of iron, clearly placed there by himself. This becomes even more obvious when the runner doesn't get the achievement for grabbing the iron. He leaves the village, but after running for a sec, mines down and right into a lava pool that was previously entirely covered and otherwise impossible for him to spot. After quickly making a portal and entering the nether, the runner finds what is clearly supposed to look like a fortress, but was obviously just made by him, and he didn't do a great job. What's even more obvious is the chest he finds in this fortress with a ton of items, particularly the blaze rods. Now that he no longer needs blaze rods, the runner begins to hunt for and quickly finds a bastion where there are a ton of gold blocks, way more than would naturally generate. Once he has multiple stacks of gold, the runner finds a hole in the ground that seems very man-made, just big enough for him to fill with piglins and trade for ender pearls. Next, the runner builds a portal to head back to the overworld despite not really having enough pearls or rods to get to the end. But after switching dimensions, suddenly has plenty. He starts heading to the stronghold where he mines straight down and right into the portal room, allowing him to quickly enter the end. Once in the end, the runner has a ton of eggs in his inventory, and even though he picked up some eggs earlier in the run, it wasn't nearly this many. He's now able to use these eggs to destroy the crystals way quicker, which makes for a much faster ending of his run. This runner spawns in a desert, conveniently right next to a tree, but pay attention to what happens when he walks towards it. Did you notice it? The runner walked over a pressure plate that was seemingly disguised as sand. And after chopping the tree, he heads back in this direction, where a hole in the ground has suddenly opened up to reveal buried treasure, likely triggered by the sand pressure plate. In the chest, there is all the normal buried treasure loot, but also a flint and steel and obsidian, which are not possible spawns. You'll also notice the 9 wool that was evidently already in the runner's inventory before the run started, just enough for him to craft 3 beds to kill the dragon later on. After looting the chest, the runner uses his newly obtained obsidian to build a portal and enter the Nether, where... yeah, there was clearly a not so clever cut in the recording, and he's suddenly in a fortress. There's also now this random Steve head in the corner, but we'll get to that in a second. The runner heads through the fortress and right to a blaze spawner, where there are a ton of blazes. Way more than would have spawned in this short of time, confirming that this world was played on before the run, if you couldn't already tell. While fighting the blazes, if you look really closely, you'll see potion particles around the runner. Fire resistance particles to be specific, which explains the random Steve face. The runner must have retextured the potion effect graphic that's normally in this spot into a Steve face to throw people off and to hide the fact that he secretly gave himself fire resistance, similar to the sand pressure plate from earlier. Why couldn't he have done a better job? I have no idea. Next, the runner heads back to the overworld before digging straight down and right into the stronghold, where he doesn't get the achievement that you'd normally get, showing that he's already been in this stronghold. He enters the end and everything seems normal, but after messing up with his beds, the Steve head reappears and the runner kills the dragon in 1 hit. So instead of fire resistance, he must now have like strength 1000. Nice. This next runner spawns right into a village, where he finds an iron golem trapped in one of the structures, somewhere where it could not spawn naturally. The golem also doesn't fight back when being hit by the runner, confirming that it was created by him. When the golem is finally killed, it drops iron like normal, but the iron on the ground is split into 2 separate piles instead of being stacked into 1, and it totals to 8 ingots, more than a golem could naturally drop, suggesting that the runner planted one of these stacks himself. The runner loots a blacksmith next, where the chest's loot looks pretty realistic, but its gold chestplate and flint and steel are not possible spawns. Also, if you take a close look at some of these villagers, they have a little brown pouch on their clothes, something that, believe it or not, indicates that they've already been traded with. For what? I have no idea. The runner spots a ruined portal very close nearby with a Bane of Arthropods gold sword in its chest. Remember this for later. He enters the Nether, but pay close attention to the path he takes once there. He heads in a very intentional direction, seemingly following these specific blocks scattered throughout his path until he reaches a bastion. Wow. In the bastion, he finds a chest with 2 ender pearls and 2 blaze rods. Obviously not possible. It's still not quite enough though, so the runner kills some endermen, where mid-fight, his sword's durability resets just before breaking. He now has 1 additional pearl. Still not nearly enough to get him to the end, but the runner disregards this and heads back to his portal, passing by and ignoring another enderman on the way. Once back in the overworld, the runner opens his F3 menu and follows his coordinates to a seemingly random location. Oh, and there's a shipwreck. Great. It contains a map that clearly shows nothing, but the runner pretends to follow it all the way until he mines straight down and into the stronghold. Oh, but don't miss how he also nonchalantly picked up some pearls on the way. Nice. That makes 7 pearls and 8 blaze rods somehow, which becomes 8 eyes of ender. Somehow, allowing our runner friend to head right into the end, where he shreds down the dragon's health quite quickly with his Bane of Arthropods sword from earlier. But it seems like it's now enchanted with strength, considering how quickly he's able to kill the dragon, which makes for a pretty easy end to his run. By the way, thank you guys for 600,000 subscribers. Maybe now we can get to 700,000, please? subscribe. This runner spawns very close to an igloo, where inside he finds his chest on the surface instead of hidden underground like it's supposed to be, full of the items an igloo would normally spawn with. But afterwards, he heads in a pretty specific direction where... yeah, he broke this strangely placed dead bush here, which triggered this sand to fall and brings him right to a ruined portal. Definitely not orchestrated by himself. And luckily in the chest, there is the perfect amount of obsidian necessary to complete the portal. You'll also notice that it's now raining, something that cannot happen this soon in a new world, further confirming that this world had already been generated. Once in the nether, there are multiple blazes right next to the runner, despite him not being in a fortress, which is very suspicious. Next, he actually finds a fortress, but instead of going to the blaze spawner nearby, he follows the path into the fortress and stumbles upon a group of piglin in a hole that he clearly created himself. He throws a few gold at them and gets a couple ender pearls, not enough to get him to the end, but he's not gonna let that stop him. Instead, he returns to the overworld and just walks without any eyes of ender, instead just pretending to be doing something with this F3 menu. I'm not sure what. He continues walking until he reaches a very specific sunflower, which he mines directly under and right into the stronghold. Oh, and he suddenly has more ender pearls now, the perfect amount for him to enter the end, where he spawns in the middle of the main island on a large and clearly man-made obsidian platform, which that's not how that's supposed to happen. Okay, get this guy off my screen. This next runner spawns near a pillager outpost, where in the tower's bottom chest, there is obsidian and flint, both impossible spawns. This seems to be a trend with these fake speedrunners. They're just so lazy. There's also obsidian in the chest at the top of the structure alongside an iron axe. And coincidentally, the obsidian from these two chests adds up to 10, the exact amount needed to make a nether portal. I'm just gonna take a breather, I think. The runner leaves the tower and heads to the outpost's iron golem cage, where instead of one golem, there are 3 golems inside of it, none of which even try to fight back as he kills them. Oh, also, all 3 of the golems drop 12 iron each, obviously way more than they're supposed to. The runner now has everything he needs to build a portal and enter the nether, where he spawns right into a bastion. You really just can't get any more obvious than that. He then follows a specific path through the bastion until he spots what looks like the blaze spawner from a fortress, but is seemingly attached to the bastion. He kills a bunch of blazes before mining the spawner for some reason, and almost dying to the last remaining blaze, after which he gets as far away as possible, thanks to these blocks here that were clearly placed by him. Next, he randomly goes out of his way to mine some gold and craft some golden apples, which will be particularly notable in a sec. The runner returns to the overworld despite not yet having any ender pearls, but that doesn't last long, as he casually picks some up as he travels through the portal. Oh, and those golden apples from before are now notch apples. Also, thanks to some speedrunner magic, like the pearls and everything else in this run. As you can see, the runner is now in a village, where in the blacksmith's chest, he finds even more pearls, alongside some iron gear, which grants him a ton of achievements, including ones he already unlocked earlier in the run, likely because he revoked all of his achievements before grabbing this fake loot in an attempt to hide that he had placed it all here himself, but it just blew up in his face by not only giving him the suit up achievement like he wanted, but also everything else. The runner starts heading to the stronghold until he reaches this odd divot in the ground, and then mines straight down right into the stronghold. But I'm sure you already guessed as much. In one of the stronghold chests, he finds even more ender pearls. The remaining amount he needs to finish the portal and enter the end, where somehow he has enough arrows to shoot for like 3 minutes straight and finally beat the dragon. Great work. This first speedrunner spawns right into a desert, but his client's overlay shows that he's instead in a plains biome. This makes more sense when we take a closer look at the village houses around him and notice that they are clearly man-made, just plains village houses that he changed into sand. This fake desert is further shown when it starts to rain, something that is not possible and naturally generated deserts. Next, the runner finds some leather armor in a chest, but doesn't receive the suit up achievement when grabbing it, showing us that he has already played on this world, if you couldn't already tell. After looting the entire village at a less than ideal pace, the runner passes two lava pools right next to each other. This one here being very clearly man-made. There's just no stone or anything. He runs right into a second village next where he finds an entire animal pen just filled with a bunch of snifflers. Come on now. Remember these because they'll become important later on. If you haven't noticed it yet, take a look at this woodland mansion in the distance. Or I guess cherry blossom mansion. Yeah, I'm not sure if this runner thought anyone would actually believe these exist. He of course heads inside the mansion, where in the library, all of the bookshelves are Minecraft's new chiseled bookshelves, instead of normal bookshelves like they're supposed to be. And every single bookshelf is filled to the brim with random enchantment books, none of which he actually uses to enchant anything. He just uses a grindstone to disenchant them and get a ton of levels. Next, the runner heads back outside towards the village, but after failing a water MLG, he takes some damage and somehow instantly gains it all back. This was likely done with the client he's using, which allows you to heal yourself using a custom hotkey. Definitely not allowed in a speedrun. He heads back to the sniffler pen from earlier, but this time, all of the snifflers are digging up diamonds? I guess this runner is just very lucky. Oh, and they dig up some eyes of ender too. Very convenient. Using all of these newfound diamonds, the runner crafts full diamond gear and uses some books from the library to enchant it. And using the eyes of ender, he, well, finds the stronghold. Once in the end, you'll notice something very strange about the end crystals. The runner hits one, but it doesn't explode, making it much easier for him to take them out, as it doesn't blow up on him. This is presumably thanks to a /kill hotkey in his client, similar to the healing hotkey from earlier, that allows him to kill a nearby entity. And the rest of the run is fairly normal, other than the fact that it takes him like 10 minutes to kill the dragon. By the way, this very real statistic shows that actually 0% of you guys are subscribed. Like, literally not a single person. So if you could real quick press the subscribe button, that would be great. This next runner immediately spawns in right next to a jungle temple, which isn't impossible, but is definitely out of the ordinary. But things really start to get suspicious when he triggers the temple's first trap and nothing happens, showing us that he tampered with this temple before the run. This is further shown by the items in the temple's chest, which include a brush, something that cannot spawn in these chests, but he's gonna need it for later in the run, so remember it. After the runner leaves the temple, only a minute and 30 seconds into the run, it's nighttime. Strange, because Minecraft days are supposed to last for 10 minutes after spawning into a new world, before they'll change to nighttime, clearly showing us that this world has already been played on, as it's supposed to take another 8.5 minutes to change to night. The runner runs for a while until he finds a village, where in all of the houses he finds pretty much nothing. But this doesn't last for long, as you'll notice these blue sheep here in the animal pen. It is possible for sheep to spawn in desert villages, but it's not possible for them to be colored. Next, the runner uses the nearby blacksmith's lava to make an infinite lava source, something that is only possible with the new game rule in Minecraft 1.20. Thanks guys for pointing that out in the comments of the last video. A few times. Changing game rules is still not allowed in a speedrun though. The runner uses this lava to attempt to make an obsidian generator, and he fails horribly. But pay attention to the obsidian he's mining. Did you spot it? If not, let me play it again. Still don't notice anything? Well, that's probably because nothing's really happening here. But take note of how long it took for him to mine the obsidian. 6.5 seconds. Much faster than the 9.4 seconds that it's actually supposed to take. Showing us that the runner sped up his footage to make his run a total of about 40 seconds faster. Next, the runner finds some suspicious gravel, a new feature in Minecraft 1.20. But this gravel can't just spawn anywhere. You'll only find it in trail ruins, showing showing us that he clearly placed it here manually, considering this is a desert biome. The runner uses the brush that he found in the temple earlier to brush the gravel and finds diamonds and flint. And while there are quite a few things that can be found in suspicious gravel, these two are certainly not included. The runner finds a ruined portal next, but instead of lighting it, he just instead mines all of its obsidian and runs for almost 3 minutes in a totally different direction, until he eventually stops and builds a portal in a very specific location. This makes a lot of sense when he enters the Nether, and this portal brings him directly into a fortress, right in front of a blaze spawner. When the runner kills a blaze, it seems to just drop blaze rods like normal, but when he opens up his inventory, we'll notice something else. The blaze rods he picked up are strangely separated in his inventory, something that makes more sense when he hovers over these ones here, and they seem to actually be ender pearls. So the runner must have used a texture pack to retexture ender pearls to look like blaze rods, and then programmed blazes to drop these fake blaze rods alongside the real ones. Very tricky. I definitely haven't seen that one before. The runner kills a few more blazes, which all drop the same fake blaze rods, and then heads right back to the overworld, where he crafts the fake blaze rods and the real blaze rods together to make Eyes of Ender. He immediately starts heading to the stronghold, but when he's finally digging down into it, he ends up falling, and there's a quick cut in the video. Afterwards, he's all of a sudden in the portal room. Did he think nobody would notice that? He places all his Eyes of Ender in the portal, but is one short. But instead of just quitting the run right there like any other speedrunner would, this dude kills silverfish until one drops an Eye of Ender. What? He enters the end, where all of the pillars are bedrock and the fountain is obsidian. How did they switch? What? Let's just move on. This next runner spawns right next to a village, but let's take a closer look at their hotbar. You'll notice that the 4th slot is selected. Strange, because when you first spawn into a new world, the first slot will always be the one selected, showing that this runner has already played on this world. But things start to get really interesting when we notice this house here that's on fire thanks to this lava pool right next to it. But considering this run just started, this fire wouldn't have been able to spread this much this quickly. So this world has clearly been loaded for at least a little while. As the runner is looting the village, they find iron in the chest of a normal village house, something that is impossible and clearly staged. To collect even more iron, the runner kills all 6 of the village's iron golems, far more than the number that would naturally spawn in a village of this size. It's also worth noting that none of these iron golems fight back when being attacked, something that only happens with golems that have been created by a player. Next to the lava pool from earlier, there is a conveniently shaped hole in the ground that the runner is able to use to quickly make an infinite water source. The runner uses this water to slowly put together a nether portal, but when they enter the nether, their spawn is really bad and there's seemingly nothing nearby, except for lucky blocks. Immediately when this first runner spawns in, we can see in chat a message that says he joined the world, which only happens on servers and not on single player worlds, suggesting that this guy is playing on a multiplayer server, something that will make more sense later. It's also worth noting that this runner's spawn is terrible, and any experienced runner would immediately reset for a better seed. The runner makes some tools and does some mining before eventually heading back to the surface, and walking in a very specific direction until he walks directly to a village, suggesting that he already knew the location from scouting out the world beforehand. He kills a golem for iron, but when he's fighting a second golem, notice how it doesn't fight back. This means that this golem was manually spawned in, as naturally spawned golems will attack players when they're being attacked. Immediately afterwards, he finds a village chest with loot that looks very man-made, and we can actually spot healing potion particles in the background that restore him to full health, suggesting that this this run is being actively tampered with while the runner is playing, likely by another player. Something that would explain why he's on a server and why we saw the join message earlier. A friend of his is helping him cheat. It's nighttime at this point, and the runner finds and kills a spider that drops a flint and steel? Yeah, and immediately after he finds a lava pool that already has a portal frame built inside of it. Very sneaky. Once in the nether, the runner runs directly to a fortress, where he almost dies to wither skeletons. But similar to earlier when he was in the chest, he is randomly splashed by healing potions and his life is saved. Very, very strange. And soon after, as he's entering a portal, we can see potion particles floating next to him. These are the particles for invisibility, showing us that there is indeed another player on this world helping out the runner. They're just invisible. Once back in the overworld, the runner spends some time in a cave killing endermen, but something is off. While the runner is fighting some mobs, we can spot diamonds to his right, but there's only the one ore. But a few seconds later, when we see the diamonds again, there are two ores. So he mines the diamonds and walks away to keep hunting, but decides to turn around and the ores have returned in the exact same spot as before, allowing him to mine them a second time and get even more diamonds. So it's very clear that his invisible friend is still helping him cheat. Once the runner has all the eyes of Ender he needs, he throws one and then heads in its direction, but he just picks it right back up and heads back in the opposite direction. A very strange decision. And after running in this opposite direction for a while, the runner conveniently finds a random stronghold that seems to just be floating in the air. Very clearly spawned in manually and obviously pretty lazily. Because of the stronghold being spawned in so poorly, the runner has to basically parkour his way through it to find the portal, which he finally does and uses to enter the end. Let's just move on.
By the way, the statistics show that 0% of you guys are subscribed, like not a single person, so please consider subscribing.
Before this next runner starts his run, take a good look at this world selection screen, specifically at this world right here. Make sure to take a good long look at the icon. You're gonna want to remember this for later. So the runner goes through the process of creating a new world, or so it seems, but when he spawns in, look at his surroundings. And now let's compare them to the world save from the menu. They are pretty much the exact same, meaning that these are the same world and showing us that he has already played on this world and set things up to give himself an advantage, something that will become very clear as the run progresses. To start the run, the runner heads right to a nearby village which he loots and then finds an igloo with a basement, which is not possible in a village. Igloo basements of course have zombie villagers, and this one is no different. The runner grabs a golden apple and splash potion from the chest and uses it to cure the villager, which once cured has a trade for ender pearls. How convenient. He leaves the village for now and is ready to head to the nether, but instead of looking for a lava pool or ruined portal, he decides to use the lava from the village's blacksmith to build his own portal. Normally this would not be enough lava to make a portal, but he uses the 2 lava sources from the blacksmith to create an infinite lava source, which is obviously not possible. He must be using a mod or something to make this work, and work it does. He uses his new infinite lava source and water from under the ice to create a portal and heads right into the nether, where he finds a path over some lava that he clearly made himself, and when he follows it, it leads him right to a nether fortress. Interesting. The runner grabs a bunch of blaze rods in the fortress and then heads back to his portal and to the overworld. Once back in the overworld, the runner crafts his ender pearls from the villager into eyes of ender and is ready to head to the stronghold, but you might notice something strange when he starts throwing the eyes. It looks very laggy, even though everything else is running perfectly smooth. I believe that this is because he is using command blocks to make the eyes move in a specific direction to a specific location, and here's why. The runner starts to dig down to the stronghold shortly after he starts throwing eyes, and when he finally mines right into the portal room, it is clear that it was not naturally spawned. There are no iron bars, silverfish, any of that. He clearly built this himself to make it very close by and easy for him to get to, and he programmed the eyes to lead him here in order to make it seem legit, which would explain the laggy eyes. Maybe he would have gotten away with this all if the portal room didn't look like this. This next runner spawns right next to a village that is pretty normal, other than the massive amount of hay in it, much more than should naturally spawn. After gathering a bunch of the hay and then almost dying to an iron golem, he heads into a random house which somehow has a ton of overpowered loot. Really? Next, he heads to some gravel, presumably with the goal of finding flint, which he does. But if you slow down the video, you can tell that he didn't get the flint from the gravel. Instead, it seems like he got it from some sort of invisible item frame. Sneaky. The runner heads to a second village that's conveniently right next to the first, which he quickly loots before heading straight in a random direction. And what do you know? A ruined portal. Perfect. But he doesn't light it yet. Instead, he just completes it and leaves it for now. I guess he decides to keep running in search of something, which is further explained when he runs straight to a shipwreck, something he clearly already knew the location of. The shipwreck's chest has pretty good loot, and although it might seem believable and realistic, it's not. If we look at the loot tables for shipwreck chests, we can find the probabilities of certain items spawning. There's quite a few diamonds in this speedrunner's chest, 6 total to be exact. Considering that there's a 14.1% chance of 1 diamond spawning in a shipwreck chest, that means that the probability of 6 spawning, like in this one, is roughly 1%. Not to mention the rest of the really good items in the chest. Seems suspicious. After looting the shipwreck, the runner heads back to the ruined portal from before, which he lights and uses to finally enter the nether. Is he even at a fast pace at this point? When he first spawns into the nether, you can see that all of the lava falls around him have already fully loaded in and flowed down to the bottom, showing us that he had already entered the nether before the run. This is further shown by the fact that there is a nether fortress incredibly close to where he spawned in, as well as the fact that there are pretty much 0 magma cubes outside of the fortress or wither skeletons inside of the fortress. Blazes are the only mobs that he finds, which he is able to kill off quickly and gather all of the blaze rods he needs, so he quickly heads back to the overworld. The runner returns to one of the villages from before where he finds a green villager with trades. This sticks out because it is 100% impossible for green villagers to have trades. In fact, green villagers are canonically titled nitwits because of how useless they are. So clearly the runner set up these trades himself before the run, something that is further shown by the fact that this green villager has an ender pearl trade. How convenient. The speedrunner needs pumpkins for this trade, so he quickly goes and grabs a bunch and exchanges them for 13 pearls. Pretty much the perfect amount for finding the stronghold and entering the end. So he does just that. He crafts these pearls into Eyes of Ender and heads to the stronghold, where he mines right down in the direction of the portal room. Once in the end, we can see that the platform the runner spawned on is oddly large, showing us that it seems like he built it himself, probably to get closer to the main island, and just forgot what the proper size of the platform was. Also, all of the end crystal towers are really small, like impossibly small. I don't know how he thought he was gonna get away with that, but I guess at least it's easier for him to access the crystals now. This runner spawns in a mesa biome, which is terrible luck, but his luck quickly turns around when he finds a mineshaft chest near the surface that contains an iron pickaxe and a few obsidian, neither of which are possible spawns. There's not quite enough for him to build a portal, but he mines straight down and right into another mineshaft, where he finds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate chests with additional obsidian, totaling to, you guessed it, 10. Perfect. The runner decides to build his portal in what seems like a pretty specific spot, which makes more sense when he enters it and ends up right in a bastion. How subtle. But there is seemingly not a single piglet. Obviously pretty out of the ordinary. This doesn't last for long though, as the runner opens his pause menu and then after a weird cut in his recording, quickly finds a number of piglets. This makes sense when we pay close attention to his pause menu during the cut and notice that he subtly changed his difficulty from peaceful to easy, as peaceful would prevent the piglin from spawning and changing to easy would allow it. Originally being on peaceful mode seems like a strange choice, but
Yeah.
The runner trades with these newly spawned piglins and gets a ton of ender pearls, way more than possible, suggesting that he tampered with the piglin drop rates. He then walks directly to a fortress that he clearly already knew the location of, and immediately finds 2 blaze spawners right next to each other, allowing him to quickly get all of the rods he needs. He heads back to his same portal from before, but when he travels through it, he ends up in a totally different location, this time in a cave, right next to some diamonds, and very close to the stronghold. Wow, this guy sure is lucky. He crafts all the eyes he needs and enters the end, where after a slow and embarrassing dragon fight, he finally finishes his run. When this next runner spawns in,
Oh, that's awkward.
he quickly finds a village, but this village is abandoned, something that only has a 2% chance of generating. Not to mention the fact that there are still villagers here, as well as a blacksmith, both of which would be impossible in an abandoned village. And of course, in the blacksmith's chest is both obsidian and a flint and steel, neither of which are possible spawns. The runner finds a ruined portal next, which at first glance seems pretty normal, but notice how there's crying obsidian pretty much everywhere, except for the specific shape the runner needs to make a smaller portal inside of the frame. Very clever. But once he enters the portal, his nether spawn is absolutely terrible. So he heads back to the overworld and then right back to the nether. And this time spawns somewhere entirely different. In fact, this time he's right next to a bastion. It's also obvious that the runner tampered with the bastion, as there are an increased number of chests throughout, and there are ender pearls in all of them. There's also a few blazes in this bastion, which, believe it or not, that's not how that works. This guy also still hasn't crafted a sword, so instead he just uses a pickaxe to kill everything here. He's just incredibly skilled. He gets the rods he needs to return to the overworld, but not before eating a golden apple. Remember this for later. The runner builds a new portal, and once back in the overworld, very carefully throws one eye of ender before walking right to this not so subtly marked location and mining straight down and right into the stronghold. This guy's memory must be terrible if he has to do this. Once in the stronghold, the runner spends over 4 minutes searching for the portal, and once he finds it, he decides to grab some water before entering the end. So he grabs it from where there's supposed to be lava. Interesting. Once he enters the end, the dragon has already lost some of its health, which is weird to say the least. Oh, he also eats a golden apple that seems to have just appeared in his inventory, considering he already ate his one and only gapple like 10 minutes ago. Oh, and the runner still hasn't crafted a sword, so he does this entire end fight and eventually kills the dragon with only a pickaxe. Why? I'm not sure, but I guess it's impressive. This next runner spawns right next to a desert temple, which has all of its normal loot, but also a diamond sword and a flint and steel. Obviously, neither of which are possible. They then run directly to an outpost that they seemingly already know the location of, where in one of the chests there is a bunch of impossible loot. But after closing the chest and reopening it, the loot is suddenly normal. What? The runner also gets bad omen from the outpost, so when they find a village next, they accidentally start a raid and end up running away. They enter the nether next, where they spawn right next to a lava ocean, and suddenly they have a warped fungus stick in their inventory. Very convenient considering the strider right there. Definitely very real. The runner rides the strider all the way until they reach a bastion, where once they enter, they don't get the achievement, showing that they've already been here. It doesn't make much of a difference though, as the runner has no idea how to loot the bastion, and ends up spending like 5 minutes getting all the chests. Oh, not to mention there's ender pearls in all of the chests. After another few minutes of time wasted, the runner finds a fortress, where in the nether wart room there are a ton of blazes, nowhere near a spawner. Very weird. Oh, they also use TNT to kill the blazes. A very interesting choice to say the least. The runner heads back to their portal, but this time ends up in a random cave. Not at all where they originally entered the portal, but luckily there's this totally realistic hole that leads right to the surface. I'm sure this is something that can definitely only naturally generate. This seemingly random new location makes more sense when the runner is able to quickly find the stronghold, showing that this location wasn't totally random after all. In fact, it was intentionally very close to the stronghold. Once they complete the portal and enter the end, the runner... Oh, let's just ignore that. Yeah, they killed the dragon. Nice job. This runner spawns right next to a cave, where once he's done chopping a tree, he goes right into. As he's headed deeper and deeper though, he passes and ignores multiple veins of iron and diamonds until he reaches an ancient city. Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. He enters the city to loot while simultaneously triggering multiple wardens to spawn. But it's worth it as almost every chest has multiple god apples, which might come in handy once the wardens show up. He also gets quite a bit of overpowered armor from the chests, including a chest plate, something that is not possible as ancient cities can only spawn with leggings. He also gets multiple ender pearls from the chests. Obviously not possible, but that's not it. Let's not forget about the wildly overpowered crossbow with impossible enchantments. The runner's looting session is cut short once the wardens arrive, so he returns to the caves where he conveniently finds a number of endermen that he definitely didn't spawn in. He also mines right into a ruined portal where once he enters it, he spawns right next to a fortress, specifically the blaze spawner, where you'll notice that he mined out the floor beneath the spawner to make it easier to gather blaze rods, which is exactly what he does. He heads right back to his portal, but stands very specifically in the corner of it, which takes him to a brand new portal on the surface, directly above his original portal. This was in a Mapic video. It's a real thing. The runner then heads directly to the stronghold where there are already a ton of eyes in the portal, like way more than possible, making it very easy for him to enter and kill the dragon with his overpowered crossbow from earlier. Awesome. This first runner has some XP points when he first spawns in, something that obviously isn't possible and proves that he has already played on this world. This is further proven by the fact that all of the crops in a nearby village are already fully grown in, which is strange because village crops naturally spawn in looking like this. The runner continues looting the village where he finds a chest in a house where chests don't naturally spawn, and in the chest is iron, something that he also finds in a blacksmith chest alongside a ton of unrealistic loot. He needs to gather some beds, so he heads into this big house where there are more beds than there naturally should be. He finds a lava pool but totally messes up when trying to build a portal, but it's fine because he strangely seems to know exactly where another lava pool is, and this time he luckily doesn't mess up. He heads into the nether where we can spot a second portal nearby that shows us that he has already been here. Next he locates a fortress where he finds a ton of blazes, and so is able to get all the rods he needs incredibly quickly. He continues to head directly to a bastion where alongside a ton of gold he finds diamond blocks, which just isn't possible in these particular chests. After trading with some piglins for ender pearls, remember this for later, he heads to a very specific spot in the bastion and builds a portal that brings him into a cave, and then he digs straight down and right into the stronghold. He's able to walk directly to the end portal, but he doesn't have enough eyes of ender. Because of this, he has to backtrack all the way back to the nether in order to get more blaze rods, and once he finally has enough, he heads back to the end to finish the run. I don't know why he didn't just give up earlier, but whatever. This next runner spawns in an absolutely insane seed with 1, 2, 3 villages, all of which have a ton of iron golems in them, enough that the runner is able to get full iron gear. Right next to a desert temple, the runner finds a tunnel that brings him right into the treasure room. The runner grabs a bunch of crazy loot from the chests and then uses the same tunnel to head back to the surface as fast as he can, where he finds yet another tunnel that leads right to an underground ruined portal. This is just incredibly unlikely, and both of these tunnels just seem very unnatural. The runner heads into the nether and quickly locates a fortress, where there seems to just be a ton of blazes, way more than there naturally should be. This allows the runner to gather plenty of blaze rods very quickly, and afterwards he heads to a nearby bastion where he's able to gather an insane number of gold from the chests, an amount that is just not possible. The runner collects a bunch of piglins together and tosses all of his gold at them, and it takes a while, but eventually the piglins go through all of the gold and the runner leaves with a ton of pearls. He heads back to the overworld and is able to locate the stronghold suspiciously fast, and once he's in it, he's able to walk right to the portal room without stopping once. The runner heads into the end, and once the dragon perches for the first time, it just stays there without moving until the runner kills it. How subtle. This next runner is named Joe Smith. I covered one of his fake speedruns in my last video, and it was pretty interesting.
Cry about it!
So after I talked about him, he decided to attempt another speedrun. So Joe starts his run with a pretty interesting strategy.
So I'm gonna hit a multiplayer because I'm playing this one online because my computer has no storage left, so I don't have a world.
That already tells us quite a bit. He starts chopping some trees and does a little mining, and then he finds a ruined portal. If you remember my last video, in Joe Smith's last speedrun, he found...
It's an Enderman dungeon? No way. I didn't even know these things existed. They're so rare.
And so in this speedrun, he has something to say about it.
Okay, the Enderman dungeon. Yes, it was lucky. It happens, but it was really lucky. And I'm probably not going to find another one, so I have to resort to going to the nether like some kind of noob.
So he completes the ruined portal and heads into the nether. And then he finds...
There's no way! It's a blaze dungeon! Guys, these are so rare!
Yeah, you heard him right, a blaze dungeon. How creative. So he's able to get all the blaze rods he needs, as well as ender pearls in the chest of the blaze dungeon. And he heads back to the overworld, where he locates the stronghold, enters the end, and... Oh look, he even beat his own time from his last speedrun. This next speedrunner spawns right next to a woodland mansion and makes the interesting decision to not only stay on this seed, but also to go into the mansion. By the way, ignore this dumb watermark he has on the footage. So yeah, he heads into the woodland mansion where he finds a ton of iron in a chest, which is just not possible, as well as some diamonds in another chest. He now has everything he could need from the mansion, considering there are strangely no evokers to give him any totems of undying. So he heads out into a nearby village that is really tiny. This seems like it would make it tough for the runner to gather all the beds he needs, but that actually ends up not being a problem, as some of these houses have beds in them when they don't naturally spawn with them. All three of these houses are like this, so the runner is able to head out the village with all the beds he needs. He finds a ruined portal next with a ton of obsidian in the chest, enough for him to finish the portal and head into the nether, where he's able to almost immediately find a fortress. There seems to be a ton of blazes, which is further explained by the second spawner we can just barely spot if we look here really closely. This dude really thought he could get away with this. The runner eventually finds a bastion where there's already a hole perfectly fit for a bunch of piglets. He trades for the ender pearls he needs and heads back to the overworld, where he's able to just swim through a cave and end up right in the stronghold. He heads into the end and is determined to fight the dragon, but just ends up dying. This next runner spawns right in a village, where there are multiple iron golems that don't fight back when being attacked, which shows that they were spawned in by the runner, because naturally spawned golems will of course attack you back. After looting the village, the runner heads to a nearby ruined portal, where none of the blocks are crying obsidian. Something that seems strange because ruined portals naturally spawn with a few of the blocks being crying obsidian. The runner completes the portal and heads back into the nether, where he immediately finds a bastion. He finds a ton of gold in the bastion and finds some piglins to trade with, and he gets a ton of pearls very quickly. A similar thing happens once the runner heads to a nearby fortress and gets a ton of blaze rods incredibly quickly. The runner has everything he needs, so he heads back to his portal from before. But when he enters it, he ends up in a completely new location. For reference, this was the area around the portal before he entered the nether, and this is the area after he re-entered the overworld. This makes more sense once the runner heads maybe 50 blocks from the portal before locating the stronghold and mining right down, where there's a pretty blatant cut in the recording, and after the cut, the runner mines right into the portal room. Once he's in the end, he one by one breaks all of the crystals, but some of them seem like they've already been broken by him before the run. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video.